Far beyond the stars, many alien species lived in the Great Galactic Council. This council was made to keep peace and order in the galaxy. Every so often, the council chose a special species to guard an ancient secret. This secret was very old and very powerful. It could change the fate of the whole galaxy, but before a species could become the guardian, it had to pass a test. This test was not easy. In fact, no species had ever passed it. The test was so hard that most thought it was impossible. It was designed to check strength, wisdom, and heart. The council believed that only the best could protect the secret. The council called this test the final challenge. They sent out a message to all species across the galaxy. Many species wanted to try. They sent their best warriors, smartest thinkers, and bravest leaders. They all believed they could pass. Many prepared for years to face the challenge. On one faraway planet, there lived a strange and fierce people called the Deathworlders. Their planet was named Karath, but most called it the Death World. It was a place where the weather was always harsh. Giant storms roared across the sky. The land was full of dangerous animals and poisonous plants. Only the strongest could survive there. The Deathworlders were not like other species. They did not have bright colors or shiny technology. They were tough, with strong muscles and sharp minds. Their skin was rough and their eyes were sharp. They had learned to live with pain, hunger, and fear every day. To them, the galaxy's great warriors looked weak. When the Galactic Council announced the final challenge, many laughed at the Deathworlders. "They will never pass," they said. "They are wild and crude. No way they can face the test." But the Deathworlders did not care. They had their own way of thinking. They did not want to join the council or be part of its games. They only wanted to show the galaxy that survival mattered most. A small group of Deathworlders gathered in a dark cave on Karath. Their leader was a tall, strong man named Kale. Kale had scars on his face and fire in his eyes. He smiled as he listened to the news from the council. "Every species will try and fail," Kyle said softly. "They think strength is only weapons and machines. But they forget something. Strength is life itself. We are the Deathworlders. We live where others die. The test will laugh at them. And so will we." His people nodded. They had trained for this moment. They knew the test was not just about fighting. It was about surviving anything, anywhere. Kyle looked at his warriors and said, "We will go. Not to win their prize, but to show them what true strength means." The council's message reached every corner of the galaxy. Species sent great fleets and armies to the test worlds. Some were proud, some were nervous, but all wanted to be chosen as the new guardian. The first test world was a desert planet filled with burning heat and endless sand. Many species landed with machines and weapons ready. They faced dangerous creatures and deadly storms. Many failed quickly. The second test world was a place of ice and darkness. The cold was so deep that it froze even the strongest. Only a few survived the first day. The third test was not just physical, but mental. Species had to solve puzzles that required wisdom and kindness. Many failed because they were too proud or selfish. Meanwhile, the Deathworlders stayed on Karath. They did not rush. They prepared in their own way. They trained their bodies to endure pain and hunger. They sharpened their minds to think clearly in chaos. And they learned to work as one, trusting each other more than anything. Kale often walked alone on the rocky plains of Karath. He looked at the stars and thought about the council. "They think this test will choose a hero," he said to himself. "But heroes are not born from rules or games. They are born from fire and struggle." One day, a small message arrived for Kale. It was simple and short. "You are invited to join the final challenge." Kale smiled. Finally, it is time. He called his people. "We leave tomorrow. We will face the test, but not as they expect. We will laugh at their rules. We will show the galaxy that the Deathworlders do not fear anything. The next day, the Deathworlders boarded their old but strong ship. It was not the fastest or the most advanced, but it was built to survive the worst. They left their home, not with pride or fear, but with a quiet confidence. As they traveled through space, other species saw them and whispered, "Who are these wild Deathworlders? They do not belong here." Many did not believe they could last even one test. But the Deathworlders only laughed. Not because they were arrogant, but because they knew something others did not. The galaxy was full of dangers, yes, but the Deathworlders had survived the greatest danger of all, their own world. The ship entered the first test world's orbit. The Council watched closely. The Deathworlders were ready to prove that every species before them had failed for one reason. They forgot what it means to survive. The story was just beginning. The final challenge was not just a test, it was a lesson. And the Deathworlders were ready to teach it. The first test world was called Corin, a desert planet where the sun burned like a giant fireball. Endless sand stretched in every direction. The heat was so strong that even the thickest armor could not protect from it for long. Only those who knew how to survive the desert could hope to pass. The Galactic Council sent many species to Corin. They came in ships filled with weapons, tools, and machines designed to conquer the harsh environment. Some looked powerful and proud. Others seemed nervous but determined. They all wanted to be the first to pass the test. The test was clear: survive for 7 days in the desert without outside help. The test was not just about fighting, it was about endurance, cleverness, and heart. Many thought their weapons and machines would make the task easy. They were wrong. The first day began with chaos. Sandstorms blew fiercely, blocking vision and crushing weak machines. Some species' advanced robots broke down under the heat. Others struggled to find water or shelter. Many were forced to return to their ships in failure. On the other side of Corin's great desert, the Deathworlders' ship landed quietly. Their ship was old and simple, but it was strong and could survive the worst. Kale and his warriors stepped onto the burning sand with calm faces. They wore light armor made to breathe in hot air and carried only what they needed. While others shouted orders or panicked, the Deathworlders moved slowly but surely. They used their knowledge of survival from their home planet, Kareth. They knew how to find water in dry places. They knew which plants could be eaten and which were poison. They had learned to read the wind and the sun. Kyle watched his people carefully. "Remember," he said, "this is not a war. This is survival. Trust your instincts and trust each other." The Deathworlders split into small groups, each with a task. Some searched for water, others found shelter, and some kept watch for dangers. They worked as a team, never rushing, never wasting energy. Meanwhile, the other species fought among themselves. Some wanted to lead, others wanted to follow. Pride and fear caused mistakes. Some lost valuable time arguing or fighting. They forgot that the test was not just strength, but patience. On the second day, the heat grew stronger. Many of the Council's champions were tired and weak. Some machines stopped working. Some warriors lost hope. But the Deathworlders were steady. They rested when needed and moved when the time was right. During the third day, a sudden sandstorm struck. Visibility was almost zero. Many species groups were lost or separated. Some turned back, scared of the storm. The Deathworlders did not run. They huddled close together, protecting one another. They used simple signs and sounds to communicate. Their leader, Kale, stood firm in the storm's center, guiding his people like a rock in a wild sea. When the storm passed, the Deathworlders found each other again. They had lost no one. Their calm and trust kept them alive. The other species watched with surprise and growing respect. By the fourth day, many species were close to giving up. Hunger and thirst wore them down. Their pride cracked. They doubted the council's challenge. Some spoke secretly of quitting. But the Deathworlders kept going. They shared their food and water equally. They kept their spirits high with quiet laughter and strong bonds. To them, this test was simple. It was like, almost on the fifth day, a new danger appeared. Strange desert creatures, fast and sharp-toothed, began hunting the test groups. The council had expected this. It was part of the test to see how species could fight and protect themselves. Many species tried to fight with weapons and machines, but the creatures were too fast. Some groups lost members. Panic spread like wildfire. The Deathworlders prepared differently. They used traps made from simple materials. They moved silently, using the desert's shadows. Their warriors fought with close combat skills learned on Karath's dangerous lands. They did not fear the creatures. They respected them as part of the challenge. When the creatures attacked the Deathworlders, they fought fiercely but with control. They took no risks with their people. Their leader, Kyle, was in the front, calm and strong, inspiring courage. By the sixth day, the Deathworlders were still strong and whole. The other species were broken, tired, and fearful. The desert had proven its power. The seventh and final day came with a strange challenge. The council created a puzzle made from the desert itself. It was a giant labyrinth, filled with traps and secrets. The test was not only to survive, but to find the hidden key inside the maze. Most species tried to solve the maze with machines or magic. They wasted time and energy going the wrong way. Some gave up, trapped inside endless loops. Kyle smiled when he saw the maze. "This is where their pride will fail," he said quietly. "The maze is not only a puzzle. It is a test of patience and courage." The Deathworlders entered the maze as a team. They did not rush. They listened to each other and learned from their mistakes. When a trap appeared, they found ways to avoid or disarm it. They moved steadily, step by step. At one point, they found a deep pit. The path seemed impossible. But one Deathworlder used a strong vine and their skill to make a bridge. Another found a way to climb walls. Together, they helped each other. No one was left behind. After hours of careful work, the Deathworlders found the hidden key. It was an ancient stone, glowing softly. Cal took it with respect and said, "This is not just a key to the maze. It is a key to life itself." The other species watched as the Deathworlders left the maze. Many were silent. Some felt ashamed. They had tried with all their power and wisdom, but they had failed. The Galactic Council was quiet too. No one had expected the Deathworlders to pass the desert test. They had believed that technology and knowledge alone would win. But the Deathworlders had something different. They had the will to survive, the trust in each other, and the courage to face danger without fear. Kale looked at the Council's judges and said, "We did not come here to play their game. We came to show what it means to live. The desert is harsh, but it is honest. It does not lie. We respect it, and it respects us." The council was surprised. They had never heard words like these. The other species began to whisper. The Deathworlders were not just survivors, they were teachers. As the Deathworlders returned to their ship, Kale told his people, "This is only the beginning. The next test will be harder, but we will not change. We will face everything with the strength of the Death World." The Deathworlders laughed quietly, a sound like thunder rolling across the desert. They were ready for what was next. The galaxy's great test was far from over, and the Deathworlders were just getting started. The second test world was named Cryon, a frozen planet where ice covered everything like a thick white blanket. The cold was sharp and deep. Even the strongest spacesuits could only last for hours outside. The winds blew like sharp knives, cutting through flesh and metal. Few species had ever survived long on Cryon. The Galactic Council had high hopes for this test. They believed that the smartest and most advanced species would shine here. This test was not just about strength, but also about intelligence and teamwork. The test was designed to break pride and force cooperation. Many species arrived with their best technology, heating systems, energy shields, and heavy armor. They studied the icy landscape carefully and prepared for puzzles that tested their minds. The Council expected these trials to separate the clever from the foolish. The Deathworlders landed last. Their ship shuddered as it pierced Cryon's freezing atmosphere. Unlike other ships, theirs was simple and rugged. It was made to survive the harshest storms and worst conditions. The Deathworlders stepped out, breathing the cold air with steady calm. Kale looked at the icy land before him. "Cold kills many," he said, "but not us. We will use the cold. We will survive by being different." While others worked with machines and technology, the Deathworlders trusted their instincts and each other. They removed heavy armor and instead wore layered, flexible clothing made from their own planet's materials. They used fire in simple ways and learned how to move silently across the ice. The other species watched them with confusion. "How can they survive without advanced heaters?" whispered one alien. "They will freeze like all before." But the Deathworlders smiled quietly. They had learned to use Cryon's dangers against their enemies. They moved slower but with purpose. They hunted not to kill, but to stay alive. They shared heat by sitting close and telling stories to keep their spirits warm. The first challenge was a giant ice maze, filled with frozen traps and hidden dangers. The Council expected the smartest species to solve it quickly, but many got lost or frozen by their own fear. Some machines froze or broke. The Deathworlders entered the maze as one. They used simple marks made in the ice to find their way back, if lost. They shared food and warmth. They did not rush, but they did not stop. When a trap blocked their path, they broke it with strong hands or found another way. At one point, Kale noticed a crack in the ice that could be dangerous. "We cross carefully," he warned. "One wrong step and the ice will break." They crossed slowly, holding hands to keep steady. The other species failed because they tried to cross quickly and without care. The Deathworlders were slow, but safe. In the maze's center, a great puzzle awaited. It was a complex machine frozen in ice. To solve it, the species had to work together to warm it and activate its ancient mechanisms. Many species argued, wanting to lead and control. They failed to work as a team. The Deathworlders did not try to control. They took turns working the puzzle, using their hands to feel the cold metal and warming it with fire from small flares. They sang old songs to keep their minds focused and to calm their nerves. Slowly, the ice began to melt. The machine hummed with life. The puzzle was solved not by the smartest, but by the patient and united. The other species watched in disbelief. The Deathworlders, rough and wild, had solved a puzzle many thought impossible, but Cryon's test was not over. The final challenge was to cross a frozen river where the ice was thin and cracking. Many tried to run fast, hoping to reach the other side. Others tried to fly over with machines, but strong winds stopped them. Kyle looked at the river and smiled. "We do not run. We listen." The Deathworlders moved slowly again. They listened to the ice, feeling its vibrations. They tested every step before moving. When a crack appeared, they jumped to safety with skill. On the other side, they found a glowing crystal, the test's prize. Kale held it high. "The cold has not broken us, it has made us stronger." The Galactic Council was shocked. They had expected machines and intelligence to win, but the Deathworlders had won with patience, trust, and courage. While other species whispered about cheating or luck, Kale said, "We do not cheat. We do not run. We face the cold as it is, and we survive because we never give up. The Deathworlders' way was not like others. It was rough and simple but strong. They did not seek glory or power. They sought to prove that survival was more than rules or technology. As they left Cryon, the other species looked on with respect. The Deathworlders had changed the meaning of strength. On their ship, Kyle gathered his people. The tests are made for those who think power is all. But power is nothing without will. The next worlds will try to break us more. But we are Deathworlders. We do not break. The Deathworlders laughed again, a deep, warm sound that filled the cold ship with life. They were ready for the next challenge, whatever it would be. The Galactic Council watched closely as the Deathworlders moved from Cryon's icy fields into the next challenge. The Council's leaders had never expected these fierce survivors to pass 2 tests. Now, their confidence began to shake. Whispers spread through the grand chambers of the Council's headquarters. Can these wild Deathworlders truly continue? A senior judge asked nervously. They have passed where others failed, replied another. It is hard to believe. The Council had always believed in rules, honor, and strength through order. But the Deathworlders had something different. They moved with simple purpose. They survived by trusting each other and facing every danger head-on. The next test world was called Valdus. It was a dense jungle planet, filled with thick vines, giant trees, and strange creatures lurking in the shadows. The air was thick and humid. Many species found the jungle confusing and dangerous. It was a place that tested senses, speed, and sharp thinking. The Council expected a tough fight here. The jungle's tests were designed to challenge teamwork and quick decisions. Many species sent teams with heavy weapons and scanning machines to find paths and enemies. The Deathworlders landed quietly on Valdus, their ship touching down softly in a clearing. Kale looked around. The jungle hides many dangers, he said calmly, but it also hides secrets. We must move carefully and watch each other. The other species rushed into the jungle. Their machines scanned every inch. Their warriors moved fast, cutting vines and fighting any creatures in sight. Many fought for control of the test, but the jungle was different. It was alive. It changed with every step. Paths disappeared, animals watched silently, and dangers waited without warning. The Deathworlders did not rush. They used their senses and deep knowledge of nature. They listened to the sounds of the jungle and watched its shadows. They moved slowly, but they never stopped. One of Kale's scouts found a strange plant with glowing leaves. This plant can heal wounds, he said. The Deathworlders gathered carefully, using the leaves to treat small injuries. While other teams argued about supplies or leadership, the Deathworlders shared what they found without hesitation. As the HFY jungle grew darker and more dangerous, some species began to lose hope. Confusion and fear spread quickly. Teams lost members or got separated. The Deathworlders stayed close together. They helped one another climb, jump, and cross rivers. Their teamwork was quiet but strong. They knew the jungle would test their minds and hearts. The Council watched the jungle trial with growing concern. The Deathworlders were moving steadily, while the others fell behind. A great challenge awaited deep inside the jungle, a maze of thick vines and roots that shifted like living walls. The maze was designed to confuse and trap those who entered. The Council expected it to end the Deathworlders' journey, but Kyle smiled. This maze will not trap us, he said. We will listen to the jungle and to each other. The Deathworlders entered the living maze. The walls moved, closing paths and opening new ones. Many teams inside the maze panicked, running blindly and getting stuck. The Deathworlders stayed calm. They used simple tools to mark their path. They communicated silently with hand signals. When a path closed, they stopped and found a new way. In the maze's center, they found the final test, a challenge of trust. They had to cross a deep pit using only ropes and their strength. The ropes were old and weak. If one person failed, all could fall. Many species failed here. Fear made their hands slip or their minds freeze, but the Deathworlders worked as one. They held hands, helped each other, and moved slowly and steadily. They never rushed or gave up. Kale led the way, crossing first and guiding his people. His calm voice gave courage. One by one, the Deathworlders crossed safely. When they reached the other side, the jungle opened to a clear space. There, glowing in the moonlight, was the test's prize, a golden fruit said to hold the spirit of Valdus. Kale took the fruit with respect. "The jungle does not belong to the strongest or the fastest," he said. "It belongs to those who listen and care." Back in the council chambers, the leaders were silent. Their plans were failing. The Deathworlders did not follow the expected rules. They did not fight with machines or politics. They fought with heart. Some council members began to doubt. "Perhaps the test itself is flawed," one said quietly. "Or perhaps the Deathworlders are more than just wild survivors." Whispers turned to arguments. Some called for the test to be stopped or changed. Others said the Deathworlders must be watched closely. The council's old confidence was cracking. Meanwhile, the other species looked at the Deathworlders with new eyes. Respect mixed with fear. The wild ones who had laughed at the beginning were no longer just a joke. They were a warning. Kyle gathered his people once more. "The council fears what it does not understand," he said. "We do not seek their approval or their power. We only seek to live as we are." His warriors nodded. They had no desire to be rulers or heroes. Their strength was in surviving, in living through pain and fear. The next test was unknown. The council had not revealed it yet. But the Deathworlders were ready. They had learned that the galaxy's great powers underestimated them because they did not understand what it means to survive. The Deathworlders laughed again, a sound full of quiet strength. It echoed through the jungle clearing like a promise. The test was far from over. The council's doubt was only the beginning. The Deathworlders had passed 2 tests already, surprising the Galactic Council and all other species. Their success made whispers and worries grow louder. The council had designed the final trial to be the most difficult of all. It was a place called the Veil, a mysterious realm filled with darkness, illusions, and ancient dangers. No species had ever passed the Veil. It was the place where many lost their way, their minds, or even their lives. The Veil was not just a test of strength or intelligence. It was a test of spirit and heart. When the Deathworlders' ship approached the Veil, a heavy silence filled the cabin. The air felt different, thick and strange. Kyle stood at the front, looking toward the dark space beyond. "This is the place where many have failed," he said softly. "But we do not fear. We will face the unknown as we always have. Together." The others nodded, their faces calm but ready. The Veil's entrance was a swirling mist that hid what lay beyond. As the Deathworlders stepped through, their senses were confused. Sounds seemed to come from nowhere. Shadows moved oddly, and the air felt cold and heavy. The first challenge inside the Veil was a shifting maze of darkness. The walls changed without warning. Paths opened and closed. The Deathworlders moved slowly, trusting their instincts and each other. They used touch and sound instead of sight, holding hands in a long line. Other species inside the Veil panicked. Their eyes searched for walls and paths, but the maze never stayed the same. Many became lost, wandering in circles. Some fell into traps or illusions that played on their deepest fears. The Deathworlders were different. They had learned to live with fear. On Karath, fear was constant, but it never ruled them. Kyle reminded them, "Fear is a shadow. We do not fight it. We walk through it." Hours passed, and the Deathworlders continued. They found their way not by sight, but by trust and patience. When one member stumbled or doubted, others helped and encouraged. Their unity was their light in the dark. Deeper in the veil, illusions grew stronger. The Deathworlders saw visions, memories of lost loved ones, voices calling them to turn back, images of failure and despair. The mind played tricks, trying to break their spirit. Many species gave in to these illusions. They stopped, moving, trapped in memories or false promises. Kale stood firm. "This is a test of spirit," he said. "Remember who you are. Remember what we have survived." The Deathworlders closed their eyes, breathed deeply, and walked on. They spoke quietly to each other, sharing strength. At one point, the veil showed them a vision of their home planet Karath, burning and destroyed. The illusion whispered that their fight was useless. But Kale shouted, "This is not our end! We are Deathworlders! We rise from ashes!" His words broke the illusion. The vision faded and the path opened. The final challenge of the veil was a bridge of light suspended over a bottomless void. The bridge was thin and fragile, glowing softly but shifting with every step. To cross, the Deathworlders had to walk one by one, trusting the bridge and their own balance. If one fell, the others could not follow. Many species had failed here before, terrified by the emptiness beneath and the fragile path. Kale was the first to step on. He moved slowly, steady, never looking down. His heart beat steady. Behind him, his people watched, holding their breath. One by one, the Deathworlders followed, trusting in their leader and themselves. The bridge shook at times, but they held firm. When the last Deathworlder crossed, the bridge glowed brighter, lighting the dark space. The veil accepted their courage and unity. At the other side, a great door opened. Inside was the final prize, a glowing orb said to hold the ancient secret of the galaxy. Kale took the orb in his hands. It pulsed with energy but did not burn. He looked at his people and smiled. "We have passed what no one else could," he said. "Not by power or trickery, but by heart." The Galactic Council was silent. They had never imagined this outcome. The Deathworlders had done the impossible, but they did not want the secret for themselves. Kyle spoke to the Council through the communicator. "We do not seek power or control. We only ask for respect, for the truth that survival is the greatest strength." The Council leaders nodded slowly. The old ways were changing. The Deathworlders' victory was more than a win. It was a lesson. The galaxy watched in awe as the Deathworlders returned to their ship, their laughter echoing through the void. They were not just survivors. They were proof that true strength comes from unity, courage, and the will to keep going, no matter what. The Galactic Council's grand hall was quiet. For the first time in its long history, it faced a result no one expected. The Deathworlders had passed every trial. They had faced every test with courage, strength, and heart where all others had failed. The council leaders gathered in a circle, speaking in low voices. Some were proud, but most were confused. How could wild warriors from a harsh world show such strength? How could they defeat tests designed by the galaxy's greatest minds? Outside, the other species watched with mixed feelings. Some admired the Deathworlders. Others felt anger or jealousy. The Council's old rules were being questioned. The Deathworlders had changed everything. Kale stood tall before the Council. He did not boast or demand. Instead, he spoke with quiet power. "We do not want your secrets or your power," he said. "We only want respect. Respect for what we are and what we have proven. The Deathworlders live where others die. We survive because we never give up. The council's head, a wise elder named Velnar, nodded slowly. You have passed the impossible, Velnar said. The galaxy owes you respect. Velnar looked around at the other leaders. Perhaps it is time to change, to listen to new voices, to understand what true strength means. The Deathworlders did not seek to rule. They did not want control over others. They wanted only a place at the table, a voice in the galaxy's future. The council agreed. They invited the Deathworlders to join as full members. This was a great honor and a new beginning. Kyle accepted the invitation with a simple nod. We will join, he said, but only as equals. We do not seek to be above others. We will share what we know and learn what we do not. The galaxy watched as the Deathworlders took their place among the stars. Their victory was not just about passing a test. It was about showing that survival, courage, and unity were the greatest strengths of all. On Karath, their harsh homeworld, the Deathworlders celebrated quietly. They knew their fight was not over. Many dangers still awaited in the galaxy, but they were ready. They had laughed at the impossible and had won. The other species learned a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate the strength born from fire and struggle. Kale looked at the stars and smiled. We are Deathworlders. We do not fear. We do not quit, we live, and so a new era began, one where the Deathworlders led not by power but by example. The galaxy's future was changed forever.